Joining us now, Senator Mike Lee, Republican, Utah. Senator Lee, good to have you with us, sir.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you.
I just want to say this. I was a state chairman of the Trump for President campaign in Virginia, and you guys with the Cruz campaign were very tough. You put up a tough fight, especially at these various state conventions that we were at, and I want to commend your effort on that. We were the eventual winner, but you guys were a very formidable foe. No question. I know that you were leading part of that effort, Senator, so very impressive work, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was an exciting time, an exciting year with a fantastic finish.
All right. Look, there's a lot to get into today, and I know you've come out with a new work. We do want to talk about that, but look, Senator Lee, right off the bat here, I mean, the president has what many people thought was a very successful trip overseas, very disciplined. I think he made huge progress. He comes home, same thing. Now we're back to Russians, investigations, collusion, Jim Comey. Now we got Jared Kushner involved with saying that he did back channels. You heard the montage on Sunday from your colleague from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, saying it's about the stupidest thing he ever heard. He doesn't buy it. And then we got Graham saying that the former FBI Director James Comey responded to a fake email. Senator, what is going on out here?
I have no idea, but what I will tell you is this. It was extremely unusual for Jim Comey to be handling this, for the FBI director to be in charge of deciding whether or not to prosecute Hillary Clinton, for Jim Comey to be holding a press conference. Everything about it was unusual. Now, this, as a result, is going to be a widely investigated event. I'm confident we'll get to the bottom of exactly what happened, but it is one of the strangest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Now, when you say get to the bottom of it, are we ever going to get to the bottom of this? And even if we do, and we have Mueller comes out and says, look, there's just no evidence. I mean, are the liberals going to stop, or does it just go on here, Senator, in perpetuity?
Well, look, there are some people who are never going to be satisfied with anything, but I do think we can get to the point where we can achieve rough closure as to what we know, what we can still know, what's known, and what may still remain unknowable. But look, Bob Mueller is a good man, and he's respected on both sides of the aisle. And I think he's going to do a very good job in getting the facts. And in addition to this, we've got committees on both ends of the Capitol, House and the Senate, who will be looking into this. So I don't think there are going to be a whole lot of stones left unturned, and I think that's going to satisfy a whole lot of people.
All right, Senator Mike Lee, I want to turn to your new book, actually, that's being released today, Tuesday, May 30th, Written Out of History, The Forgotten Founders Who Fought Big Government. And I understand this is I have not had a chance to read it. Obviously, it just got released today, but I understand it's a fascinating historical insight into the heroes behind the establishment of the United States. Can you elaborate a little bit about your book and what the inspiration was to write it, Senator?
Yeah, sure. You know, something happened after I published my last book called Our Lost Constitution a couple of years ago. A Broadway play came out, one that you might have heard about. It's about some of the more prominent founding fathers, people who we all know, people who are on our money, faces and names we've seen and heard almost every day of our lives. And the popularity of that play exploded. I'm talking about Hamilton, of course. But I want to point out something really important. If you look at the reviews of my previous book, it's clear that something has been lost. People are openly acknowledging this. And if you combine the acknowledgement of this with the loss of the this loss with the popularity of a play like Hamilton, it's clear that the American people are looking for something to fill that hole. There is a demand for these stories that have been lost, and I'm here today to promote this book, but also to say that these stories are worth finding. And so these stories that I tell in Written Out of History are the stories of our lost founders, people who have been forgotten in history because their story is inconvenient, it's incompatible with the modern progressive message of government.
So when you say it's inconsistent with the modern progressive view of government, you talk about in your book women, minorities, and basically outsiders who first fought big government. Define this for us. What is different in your work that, say, the average person on the street would think? Just define for us differences here.
Okay, so I tell the story, for example, of a Native American chief who taught Ben Franklin the essential components of building a republic, the building blocks of what we now call federalism, of what we refer to now as the 10th Amendment, the idea that the states should have most of the power in government and a few powers should be reserved to the federal government. I tell the story of a woman named Mum Bet, an African slave in Massachusetts, who fought for and won her freedom in court, relying on the Massachusetts Constitution penned by John Adams in the early 1880s. These are not the stories that people typically learn about in school, but they are exactly the kinds of stories that were known to the founding generation and that shaped our nation's founding. These are exactly the kinds of stories that we need our children and our grandchildren to learn. It's why this book makes such a good graduation gift. As your kids are graduating from high school or college, they're going out into the real world, or to begin their college career. You want them to learn these stories that they may never hear about from their history teachers or from the mainstream media.
Senator Lee, how did you do the research on this?
Well, these are stories that are out there. They're hard to find, but if you know where to look, you can find them. Little by little, you pick up stories, and if you know the kinds of things that you're looking for example, if you know that it's important to identify people in history who were skeptical of a federal government that could become too powerful, it's easy to identify the stories once you stumble across them.
So, juxtapose this to today. You've written what appears to be a very inspiring work on people fighting big government, fighting for their freedom, fighting to be able to make their own choices and not be beholden to a big government. And it sounds like you've gone back and chronicled it. Senator, juxtapose that to today, where we get what, for all intents and purposes, is a transformational president who can't get anything done because the bureaucracy is so big and staffed with so many people that don't share his agenda that they overturn almost every policy he has, starting with the State Department over the weekend that basically got rid of his 60% reduction in war refugees and refugees coming to the United States. They just did that middle of the Sunday night. So if you're going to buy this book now and you're reading it and you're reading the inspirational stories, but then you're hit with the reality of, wow, can we really change this government and make it smaller and make it more responsive? We certainly don't see evidence of that in the first 120 days of Trump. How do you reconcile that, Senator Lee?
Well, that's exactly why I wrote this book. That's the very kind of thing that should remind us about why we need to return to these founding era stories. When I tell the story of Mercy Otis Warren, a playwright and polemicist of the Revolution era, who understood that there were profound risks with giving even as much power as was given by the Constitution to the federal government. She got into a big fight with John Adams over this, and she expressed her mind freely and said, look, this could turn badly. This could end up going out of control. Luther Martin, who was a consistently drunk Maryland farmer and lawyer, longest-serving attorney general in Maryland state history, went to the Constitutional Convention but refused to sign the Constitution, in part because he believed the federal government would become too big and too powerful. The warnings of these people went unheeded. But over time, their warnings proved to be somewhat prescient. And if we, the people, will read these stories, if we will come to an understanding of them, if we will share them with our friends and neighbors, tell them around the dinner table, little by little, we can begin to reclaim that which is ours. Because, George Washington said in 1787, after the Constitution had been drafted, but before it had been ratified, while he was trying to advocate on behalf of its ratification, from time to time, the American people will discover that the Constitution is not being implemented in a manner consistent with their wishes. And whenever that happens, the people can exercise the will to elect a new government, new representatives who will follow their wishes. This is exactly what needs to happen, and that's why I've written this book. That's why I've produced Written Out of Histories, because I want the American people to learn these things.
All right. Senator Mike Lee, Republican from the state of Utah, on his new work, Written Out of History, The Forgotten Founders Who Fought Big Government. Written Out of History, The Forgotten Founders Who Fought Big Government. Senator Lee, people want to get a copy, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
The easiest way is to go to Amazon or to Barnes & Noble or just about any place where books are sold and you can get it. I know you can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble right now. You can download a Kindle or the audio version, or you can order the hardcover.
All right, Senator, we're almost out of time. Final question, though. I've got to get your thoughts on this. The Republican, I don't know what you want to call it, Trump care, Ryan care, that came out of the House. Now it's in the Senate. Are we going to see action on it this summer? Where is it now?
Yes, I believe we'll see action on it this summer. We've got Republicans who have been working tirelessly, and I'm among them, on figuring out how to make this bill ready for prime time, how to get it ready to pass in the United States Senate. The bill as written in the House can't pass the Senate, and it had some flaws, but I think we're going to get there. We've got a high degree of resolve, having campaigned for 7 years as Republicans on repealing Obamacare. We've got to get it done, and we're determined to do so.
What about Trump's tax reform agenda?
Yeah, I think that's something that we need to get done this year as well. Now, the sequence of it, most people tend to believe that the health care reform needs to pass first and then the tax reform. I really do think they're both possible, but we've got to get it done. And it's one of the reasons why I think we need to get health care passed this summer in the next couple of months.
Okay, Senator Mike Lee, thanks for being with us. Republican Senator Mike Lee from Utah. New workout today. You got to check this out. Written out of history, the forgotten founders who fought big government. Written out of history, the forgotten founders who fought big government. Makes a great present for those graduating. You can get that on Amazon or your favorite bookstore. Senator Lee, thanks for being with us, sir.